Always a pleasure, fellas. Always a pleasure.
We appreciate you coming on. I just got done calling 6 games at Summer League. I took a red eye back last night, back in New York. And you also did some traveling recently. You went over last weekend to the ACC in Lake Tahoe, the celebrity golf tournament. Tell us about your experience.
Yeah, so first of all, for people that don't know about Lake Tahoe, it's like one of the hidden gems of the country, right? Like it's perfect weather during the summer. I think at night you like have to wear a jacket because it's cool, and then during the day it's like 75 and sunny. So from that perspective, just being able to go there and make an excuse to go hang out there for a week with some friends and family is a sweet place. But the ACC, man, the whole, so this is my first year doing it. Big privilege, right? Because they got some A-listers at this event.
The wait list is long on if you're a celebrity to get in. It's a long wait list.
They got some A-listers there, and so I'm over there just trying not to make sure I don't step anybody's toe, I don't push anybody that I'm not supposed to, so I can get the invite back next year. But it's a sweet event, man. They run it like a pro event, like a PGA Tour event, as far as like the hospitality for all the celebs, the players. Fan control, the hospitality tents, from top to bottom, whatever you could think of, like they run it so well. And that's not me just, giving them the shout out so I can get invited back next year. That's like from the heart. Like they really do just run it so well. The fan engagement's great. And then it's just playing golf on a sweet golf course. It's right on the water. They have the couple holes, 17, where it's like they're like playing music and you're taking like jumpers on this like mini hoop. It's just overall, it's just a sweet event, man.
How'd you play?
I played really average, to be honest. I think the first day I played with Marshall Falk and Alex Smith, and I think I was walking with Alex at one point, and he had a hole or two that was bad, and I had to lost a couple drives right, and I was just telling how frustrated I was because the beginning of June, like the first 3 weeks of June, I was probably playing like the best golf consistently I've played like in my life. Like I'm low 80s. I broke 80, or I shot 76 with my dad on Father's Day. Like I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great. And then like a week and a half before the tournament, swing just feels terrible. I can't find it. And I'm like, oh dude, what is going on? Like I can't figure out what the problem is, but I played decent. I think I shot 87, 86. And first day had a chip in birdie that lipped out, a couple putts to lip out. So if I would have made some putts or hold a couple shots, I probably could have been maybe just snuck in a positive. But overall, man, it's just a sweet experience. I got to play some really cool people. Got to play with Brian Bumgarner one day. Anybody that knows that name knows how famous he is from The Office. So that was really cool because that's like one of my favorite shows. It was just, overall, man, just the experience itself, like I had a lot of fun. If I would have played better golf, I probably would have had a little more fun, but I had a couple drinks and enjoying it. My friends and family are in the gallery. Like, well, my friends are chirping me, family's, supporting, but it was just a sweet event.
Brian Bumgarner, by the way, I'm going on his podcast next week, so everybody please give that a listen. I also got an invite this year, and I booked my Airbnb and everything, was going to come out with the fam. No. I had one of my friends that was going to bring his family out to caddy for me. Yeah. And then I got my club's summer schedule, and it was the same weekend as my member guest. And I canceled. And now my fear is, I know the loyalty's deep. Well, there's some reciprocity because my friend is a member at Sabonic. So I want to play in his member guest, which is next weekend. So it was just, I couldn't bail on him.
Are you going to be banned now?
I fear I'm going to be banned.
Dude, they might blacklist you. They might.
I've been blacklisted for canceling.
Bailed on the tournament.
It happens.
It would have been a lot of fun.
What you're talking about though, with just completely losing the feel of your swing, like I had that within rounds. Like I had it yesterday. I was playing in Vegas yesterday. I shot a 42 on the front. I started off the back nine well. And I'm like, oh, I'm going career low today. And then my tee shot on 15, I just went completely right. And from that point on, it was hard to finish a hole. It was
you start thinking too much. You start thinking, and then you try to make an adjustment and it's the wrong adjustment. It's a dark place when you get there.
I'm sure you've had this with your shot. There's certain times where you're like, my shot doesn't feel right, but the ball still generally goes in. It still generally goes in. You might have an off shooting night here and there, but to just completely lose all feel for it. And actually, in my member guest, the first day we did best ball, and I tied my career best, 86. I'm not as good as you, but I tied my career best. And the 4 previous rounds I had played, it was like I had never swung a golf club. That's how it felt. And so I'm going into this thing thinking I'm going to just jack it.
It gives me PTSD from thinking about the week leading up to Tahoe. And people don't realize, like, when you play in Tahoe, it's at elevation, right? I think the course is at 6,500 feet. So like all your numbers are adjusted by 10 to 15 yards. And then you have to, like, even on your chips, like there's a couple chips I hit when I was on the course that I was like, oh, I just stubbed that. Like, it's going to be terrible. And then it just flies onto the front of the green and rolls. I was like, oh, yep, great shot.
That's amazing. Well, we should get into the mailbag. We got some good stuff here, a bunch of basketball stuff. And obviously, we took last week off. We had Justin Thomas on the pod this week. He's playing in the Open right now. Go give that a listen. It was a fantastic conversation. Let's start with some basketball stuff, Tommy.
This is a good question. Mike from Memphis, he writes in, what do you guys think of the trend of these teams trading 3, 4, 5 first-round picks for one player, and how frequent it's happening?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we have to go back a little bit to the process. And the process was really the first time where a team basically said, we're going to be bad. We're going to collect draft picks. Keep in mind, the year prior to the process, the Philadelphia 76ers lost in Game 7 in the Boston Garden to the Celtics in the Eastern Conference semifinals. So it wasn't like they were that far away, but they were stuck in this sort of no man's land, not quite good enough for a championship, no transcendent player that was good enough to be a number one on a title contender. So I think that set the trend. Prior to that, in general, not always, but in general, the thought was, if we're going to trade away a good player, we want a good player back. There was a lot of that. There wasn't as much good player for young assets and draft picks. But you look down the line, and it's like Paul George, Anthony Davis, now Gobert. Of course, we don't know what's going to happen yet with Kevin Durant, but this is going to be the trend for a long time, I think. Alex, what is your sense on this, just because of the nature of how front offices operate now?
Yeah, I think a big thing to think about with this too is like kind of the shift in teams kind of not gambling, but like they're more interested in trying to find a young potential talent rather than an older vet on the team. So like maybe instead of like you said, you're trading player for player, like all they want to do now is just give me a chance at that Powerball number. Give me a chance to find somebody in the draft. Let me get 5 guys. And if one of them turns out to be really good and another one's a really good role player, that was a success. I feel like that's a little bit of it too. It's like teams are almost just searching for, they want more opportunity to strike gold. Like, how OKC did when Presti drafted, what was it, Durant, Westbrook, and Harden. Was it three drafts in a row?
Yes. And got Ibaka too in the 20s. I think he was 22nd. Yeah.
He kind of started the whole, they're doing it again now where they have, insane amount of picks. And I think, I don't know how many they had this year. They got a handful next year. It's like teams are almost just, they'd rather just bank on that, let kids develop, give them game time, know they're going to lose games, like know they're probably not going to have a lot of success, but in the long run, like they're swinging for the fences. Give me as many chances in the draft to find players.
You brought up Sam Presti, and that's a good thing to note, because Seattle, the two things that come to mind earlier than the process in my career were Seattle, where they were sort of making the first round of the second round of the playoffs with Ray Allen, Rashard Lewis. And then they shifted away, traded those guys, or traded Ray, and then let Rashard walk in free agency. And then there was that period of time where they were getting lottery picks, and Sam obviously did an amazing job in drafting those players. And then the other one is the Boston Celtics, of course, who were making the playoffs in the early 2000s, but then were pretty bad, and they had some draft assets and some young players, and they converted that into Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, and of course won a championship. They did it on sort of the flip side of that. where they didn't get the transcendent player in the draft, but they used young assets and draft picks to get the good player. The thing I want to note real quick, and Tommy, I'll let you jump in right here. I just want to note also the value of Rudy Gobert, the casual basketball. I think about the people we just talked about. Paul George, Anthony Davis, guys previously, Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett. These guys are like Hall of Famers. And I think for the casual basketball fan, they don't quite appreciate how good Gobert is, how valuable he is. We talked about this, Tommy, very early in the season. We did a whole segment on Gobert and how good he is and how valuable and how impactful he is. And I think specifically on this team with this lineup, he's going to be even better.
I was going to follow up to both of you guys. Jason from Minneapolis asked us about Rudy's fit with this particular team. Alex, what do you see? Do you see Cat? I mean, like how does this change things for Cat defensively with this makeup of this roster right now? What effect do you think he's going to have?
You know what it reminds me a lot about? It reminds me a lot of the LA team when we won the championship. You know, we would start AD at the 4, you know, save his body a little bit, don't have him bang with the 5s the whole season, 82 games, because that's a grind, right? Like going into the trenches night in, night out, having to set screens, hit guys, rebound, run, block shots. It just reminds me of us having JaVale and Dwight, you know, to kind of do some of that dirty work. And then, you know, obviously they got to figure out their best lineup, but you know, it might be Cat at the 5 late in games, you know, spreading teams out, going 5 out, small ball essentially, like they like to say. But I think you'll make a good point. Like the fit, I think the fit is great, you know, because Gobert does all the things that Cat doesn't really do well, and I think, you know, Cat does things that Gobert doesn't do well. I think it's a good mesh. It'll just be interesting to see how it works, you know, when it comes down to the fourth quarter winning time, what their best lineup is.
And I also think with this team specifically, if Anthony Edwards takes the leap, and he had a bunch of moments throughout the regular season and the playoffs where you're like, wow, that could be the best player on a championship level team. If he takes that leap consistently, they're going to be one of the top 4 teams in the West. As good as the West is, I really believe that because I really believe in how good Gobert is. And if Anthony Edwards can be that guy, all of a sudden you're talking about legitimately like a conference finals level team.
There is one thing I think that's going to be, you know, overlooked. I think at the end of the day, it's a guards league, right? It's a guards and wings league. You know, even if you have a really good power forward or something like that, I feel like, you know, the best players are the guys that bring the ball up. I think that's, you know, from NCAA tournament to NBA playoffs, I think that's the biggest thing. And I think them losing Pat Bev and Jared Vanderbilt is going to be a something they're going to have to find out how to replace, you know, because those two guys Jared Vanderbilt went to the glass every time the ball was shot, he went to the offensive glass, and every time he guarded the best wing. And then Pat Bev obviously does what he does. You trade a little bit of that for Gobert at the rim, which, you know, is a nice give and take, but I think that's something else I'd be interested to see how that fits, you know, how they replace that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should note that Kyle Anderson, of course, signed there, and he could provide some of what Jared Vanderbilt did, but he's not Pat Bev in the sense of the spirit and the moxie and the aggravation that he provides on a nightly basis.
Great vocab.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Is there any players out there? This is from Ted from Boston. Are there any players out there, Alex, because you're in the league right now, are there any players out there that haven't signed yet that you think could potentially have an impact? And we should mention, of course, that DeAndre Dayton just got his offer sheet, so he doesn't qualify for this. He just got his offer sheet from the Indiana Pacers for a full max.
Yeah, that's they end up going to do a sign and trade with that, aren't they? They have to, right, for numbers? Side note.
Well, it depends because they might match. I mean, they may match it.
Yeah. As of 33 minutes ago, the Suns haven't shown an interest in negotiating a sign and trade on Ayton with the Pacers, but the expectation remains that Phoenix will match the offer sheet. That is coming from Adrian Wojnarowski. Yeah, it's coming from Woj.
Haven't heard of that guy.
Yeah. I think I followed him the other day. I think probably, dude, I don't know. I'm trying to think of who I don't even know who the big names are that are left.
it's a lot of vets, is what it is. You know,
That's what I was about to say.
It's
I feel
Wayne
like it's older
Ellington,
players.
Rajon Rondo, Avery Bradley, DeMarcus Cousins. It's guys like that haven't signed.
Well, can I throw a follow up to this question to two of you
Yeah.
guys, which I was thinking about? Are there other guys? Take Donovan Mitchell out of it. We'll get to him, but take him out of it for a second. Are there other guys you think might get moved in general? Maybe not free agents that you feel like could be this impact. Because the guy that I would have said is somebody like Jordan Clarkson, who I feel like if they're going to trade everybody and a playoff
Get
team
his numbers off the books.
yeah. And a playoff team picks him up. You know, that addition is like a free agent addition, and that's a guy you can easily see, you know, giving some playoff team 18, 20 points a game in big moments on the stretch.
Yeah, I mean that you know, guys like Jordan too. I mean, that's like what you said. Teams are, you kind of know, you know exactly what you're going to get. You know, you know you're going to get 15 to 20 points a game. A guy that can get hot and get after it. Where the thing I want to see is how I feel like there's some teams in the East that need to like round out their lineups. You know, you saw what the Knicks did, right? So they went and got Brunson, but I just feel like their team's kind of incomplete. I don't know. I probably haven't paid enough attention because I don't work for ESPN, JJ. But I think I feel like if that's the only move they make, I don't feel like they really addressed issues that they had with their team.
Yeah, it's fair, and potentially some of that is the fact that they're maybe waiting on Donovan Mitchell to,
That's true,
you know, become available, which now they're saying
up.
he could potentially get traded. I think to answer the question, I mean, I think probably, I don't know if he's a steal because I don't know what contract he ends up on, but if potentially Colin Sexton signs a 1-year deal as a flyer, that could potentially be a steal. This is from Jane from Rutherford, New Jersey. This is for both of you because I don't watch a lot, but I do have an answer to this question. The thing you've watched over the last month that you can't stop talking about.
Alex, I have one, but you go first.
Honestly, I started watching Game of Thrones again in anticipation for the prequel or whatever it is that's coming out in August. Dude, I don't watch TV, man. I play golf.
Yeah.
This is why you guys. This is why you guys are friends.
Same.
I have a show for you, Alex. There's a show on FX called The Bear. It's about Chicago. It's about a guy who goes from working at a place like the French Laundry, which JJ knows, like one of the best restaurants in the country, and he moves back to Chicago and works at a hot dog stand, like not a hot dog stand, a hot dog restaurant in Chicago, basically. And he basically transitions those skills into sort of a much lower, higher paced environment. Like it's a crazy environment, but just a much lower quality. Yeah, and it's about as good of a show if you like are interested in food as I've ever seen. And it's crazy. It's also just like a very Chicago show.
Yeah, you're a big foodie. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think and also you just from the Chicago element, like you got to watch it. JJ, what's yours?
Okay, The Bear.
I don't have the attention span to get through television shows. For example, I thought Stranger Things season 1 was like one of the best seasons of television that I've ever watched. I've yet to watch a subsequent season. Same thing with Westworld. Like, it is very hard for me to stick with the show through the end. Mad Men, it was like the only show that I ever watched every single season live. So I'm more of a movie guy. I put the kids, like, especially when I'm out here in SAG, I'll put the kids to bed and I'll go downstairs and put the projector screen down and just watch a movie. And I love action movies.
Watch the same movie over and over
well,
again.
I actually had never seen Mission Impossible 2, which is wild because I've seen like Ghost Protocol. I've watched like 20 times. So I watched Mission Impossible 2 and I haven't stopped talking about it because it's literally doesn't fit in the franchise. I don't know who directed that movie, but it is the worst action movie I've ever seen. It is so bad. I actually, if you want to watch a bad movie, just a bad movie, go watch that movie. It's so fun.
Alex, did you see the new Top Gun?
I did. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, it's good. It's better than the original.
Top Gun's like the only Tom Cruise movies I can watch.
Yeah.
I don't think it's his fault. I think it's more me. But dude, the list of TV shows, like good TV shows that I've started and not finished is unheard of. Like Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, Mad Men. Stranger Things, Ozark. Like JJ, I think you said it best. Like I don't have the attention span to watch it and then come back. Like I need it all in that 3-hour window.
Yes, exactly. I can do a mini series. If someone says this is a mini series,
yeah, like a six episode. Yeah.
I hate when somebody's like, "You should watch this show," and I'll be like, "Well, how many seasons have they done?" And they're like 3, and I'm like, 0 chance. Like I'm not watching that show. Speaking of Chicago food, for some reason, Chicago and food always pops up in these mailbags. It's almost like Tommy writes these questions, but apparently
I will say this: we got a lot of fan questions. JJ tweeted this mailbag out 6 hours ago, and we got hundreds of questions. So people did their job today about sending
popular
stuff
show.
in.
That's what happens, you know.
Yeah.
So I think we asked you this question actually when you were on early in the season, but your favorite restaurant in Chicago, you didn't really have an answer last time. Were you able to dine a little bit in Chicago throughout the year? Do you have a favorite restaurant now?
Yeah, I do. I think the RPM seafood is my favorite. And it might not be super specific to Chicago, it might not be what the listeners want to hear. But man, every time I go there, I usually get something different, and it's so fucking good, man. Everything, from the seafood tower to the sea bass to the shrimp linguine. Like, I haven't found an item on there that I haven't liked.
I'm a big RPM guy. RPM steak, RPM Italian. I love both those places.
JJ, what's your favorite in Chicago?
Alinea. I mean, obviously.
It still was Alinea?
Well, the one that I loved that wasn't like over the top fine dining was Blackbird, and they closed recently, so I can't say that. I know yours is Ocheval, Tommy, which you've wrecked
all the goats,
on this.
Everything with a goat in it.
Yeah.
I gotta make a promise to y'all that I'll do that before next season because I still haven't been.
You got to go in September before the season starts just to knock it off the list.
Yeah.
I got a basketball question for you guys. Clark Stewart writes, which team with a young core are you most excited to see based off the summer going into next year?
Ooh, you know who I'm really interested to see is some of the Rockets guys. Kevin Porter, Jalen Green, was Josh Christopher, and then the big man, I can't remember his name, but the big foreign kid that was like the MVP of the Turkish league and then came in last year and had a couple highlights. I feel like they were just so young and so immature. They didn't really know what they were doing, and like that was fine with the organization. I'm really interested to see, if they, kind of make next steps and understand the game and see what actually, winning is about, because they got all the talent in the world, man. Those guys can all go.
I'm actually going to pick someone from your division, and that is the Detroit Pistons.
I had a feeling that was coming.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Cade, but Sadiq Bey, Jaden Ivey looked great in Summer League before he got hurt. And Isaiah Stewart, I'm a big fan of. I think he's a guy that he stars in his role. And then the big fella from Memphis they drafted, Troy Weaver's he's done an outstanding job. And I don't know if it's next year that they take an Oklahoma City Thunder leap, where all of a sudden they're a playoff team and then the following season a contender. But I'm excited to see them play over the next 2 or 3 years, because I think in 2 or 3 years they will be one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, that's a big statement. That's a big statement.
To me that's dependent on, does Cade become? I'm not saying he's going to be Luka, but if he becomes a true number one franchise level player. Yeah.
I haven't played against him yet. We played Detroit early in the year when he was hurt, and then I was hurt late in the year when we played him. So I haven't actually got to, see him in person, see how big he is, see what his skill set actually looks like in real speed. So that's something I'm interested to see, because, I've seen him make a couple of moves and finish at the rim. And then obviously I think he's 6'7", 6'8". He can shoot over you. Him and Sadiq Bey are both big players. Like, they got good frame, can play in the post, can shoot. So I understand what you're saying. That's just I guess, again, that's why you work at ESPN. You got to make some. You gotta have some hot takes. Some bold
I said it may not be this season. I said over the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. No.
I don't think
that's what they say too. They give it a
disclaimer. A disclaimer.
So
you gotta. I gotta qualify every statement. I've become well aware. I've got to qualify every statement. Alex, this is a question I actually have for you as well because you're a current player. This is from Medican from New Jersey, who wrote in, "What are your thoughts on the in-season tournament and the effect it may have on gameplay?"
Yeah, so I mean that was always the big discussion in any of our player association meetings over the last couple of years was just how do you get the incentive for players to play in the time of load management, making sure guys are healthy for the right time of the year, because essentially they're it's essentially like how the European soccer leagues do their domestic cups tournaments during the season. It sounds like a lot of fun, but there's a personal pride that they have overseas when they do those things, where it's like a big deal to win the cup or win the trophy. And I just don't know how they're going to get the motivation of all the players. And I mean, they've talked about different stuff, monetary stuff.
A mil per player. Let's be clear.
Yeah. So that's what they ended up doing.
That's good money. That's good money for 4 games.
It is, but how are you gonna? I mean, there you know as well as I do. There's certain guys in the league. Once you make a certain amount a year, like they don't care about $1 million. Like it's still $1 million. Like I would love that. Like I'm gonna.
Does Nikola Jokic in 3 years care about $1 million? I don't know. What's
any player on is any one or two, the top 2 paid players on any team in the league care about that? It's hard to say.
That sounds so pretentious. It
does. It sounds terrible.
It sounds terrible.
Everyone's you're victim of circumstance. Like if you're not in that position, it's hard to argue against it. But I think it's going to be the same thing as the play-in tournament almost. So you just got to do it, and then we'll see how it goes. I think it's going to be one of those things where fans will probably love it, and then we'll need to tweak it or do something to change it. But I mean, overall, I don't see how it's going to hurt.
Well, my question for both you guys is, when you look at like the injuries going way up, and then also just this idea about there being controversy about teams resting guys and for national TV games in January and February and whatever it is to get ready for the playoffs, how is this going to help? It feels like you're only going to exacerbate the other problems that already exist by doing this. So I understand like the financial reasons for doing it, but it does seem like it's unlike the play-in where it's all going towards the same goal, and it's basically the same amount of time. This feels like it's because it's a different time of the year. You could possibly create more problems than you solve.
You know what I could see it turning into? I could see it turning into like all the teams like this year, OKC, Houston, Detroit, teams that are like maybe a year or two away, two or 3 years away. They use this as like their mini playoffs, right? Like they're going to get their first experience of games that actually matter, some type of win or go home scenarios, and use it almost like a playoff practice. And, some of the older teams that are trying to win championships might not, they might bring up both their 2-way players and sign a early season vet to see if they can make the team kind of thing.